And welcome into On the Preds with me, your host, Alex Doherty of A to Z Sports, and Shaun Smith of On the Forecheck. Welcome in. This is the show where we recap the Preds. We got a lot to talk about this week. It's episode 13, January 16th. We are in Jan. We're done with Deck. We're in Jan now, well into Jan. You know what I mean? January.
Yeah, like we're not quite into Feb yet, but
we're not in Feb. We are a
Jan.
long way from Mar and April. We're not quite in Mar and April.
Don't even talk to me about May.
Yeah, and that one doesn't work because it's just May.
No, it's not fun at all.
So we've got to talk about the Preds. Shaun, how's it going?
Going pretty well. Sitting here looking out at a lot less snow than I thought we were going to have. So
yeah, I got a lot of slush in my yard. That stinks.
Yeah, I think here we got some snow, and I think it warmed up a little bit. And it's been getting rained on, so slush is a very good.
To define that. I do like being able to leave my neighborhood. That is kind of nice. Go ahead.
I've got tickets tonight for a comedy show that I've had since April. So now it's all the way in Jan. So I mean, how long have I had those?
Who are you
9
seeing?
months.
Who are you
Tom
seeing?
Segura.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Where at?
It's at the Ryman. I think he's doing like 8 shows, but I was like, the one I have tickets to is probably the one where the roads are going to be impassable. But it looks like
that's going to be awesome, man.
I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited.
I've seen several comedians in town. I saw at the Ryman. I saw Brian Regan at the Ryman.
Oh, he's hilarious.
And then I think who else did I see? Someone that kind of came and went. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Aziz Ansari, but it was someone like that. Someone in that era. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw Louis C.K. at Bridgestone Arena. That was amazing. Pre-incident Louis C.K. by the way. Anyways, doesn't matter.
He's put something out now. He's done a special. I think he's done a special that he's putting out himself, and I think he's apologizing for everything in it. I think it's actually called "I'm Sorry."
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but
well, speaking of I'm sorry it's taking us this long to start talking about the Preds, and here we go. Let's talk last Tuesday. Let's go all the way back to last Tuesday. The Predators took on the Colorado Avalanche. The top teams in the Central meet up again. First up, though, Tanner Jeannot got a shot off from the slot, off the post and in. Then, with a minute left in the period, Luke Kunin with a change-up goal, little change-up. Roman Josi made an excellent play on that play, but Luke Kunin got the goal. Darcy Kemper misses it. Preds up 2-0 at the break. Everything's going great. But then Colorado comes right back because they're a good team. They're a very good team. Someone named Nicholas Aube-Kubel. I don't know who that is, but he scored. And then Andrei Burakovsky ties it on the play where Mark Borowiecki was injured. Some controversy there. It kind of got clarified later. Not actually that controversial. Luke Kunin made another great play, and I've got a video of that. I want to show this because this is pretty amazing. This is just a great play by Kunin and Cousins that I think shows a lot about what that kind of pair brings. Let's watch this play real quick.
With whoever they're out there with. Gerard looks over his shoulder. He's got a forechecker coming in. It's Luke Kunin. Kunin pries the puck loose. Hopper has it. Stolen back Cousins. Right in front. They score! Luke Kunin. That's 2.
Willie, it's all about the forecheck. It's all about their identity. Get in, separate man from puck. That's Kunin that gets in. And you see Josi feeds it to Nick Cousins, who sees Luke Kunin going back post, and he gets it up, elevates.
So that was really nice. And as you heard C-Mace talk about, it really was all about the forecheck. Luke Kunin flies into those boards, separates man from puck, as Mace said. And Nick Cousins makes a great play to find him, and then Kunin just puts it on net. So really excellent play. You like when you see that kind of play because that kind of play right there can beat any skill. I mean, that's just when you physically own another player, like it doesn't matter who it is, you can win the puck off of them. So that was really great to see. Then in the third period, speaking of skill, we saw 3 incredibly highly skilled plays by 3 great players. First was Nathan MacKinnon firing home a power play goal. He's really good, and he's going to score a lot of goals. Then Matt Duchene makes it 4-3, and I thought this was a great play too. He kind of tapped the puck to his stick from his skate while in the slot, while covered with guys. I mean, really, really good stuff from Matt Duchene. And then Cale Makar, who is definitely in the running for Norris Trophy, in my opinion. I think it's probably going to be between Roman Josi, Cale Makar, and probably Victor Hedman again. That's if the voting was right now. Anyways, So Cale Makar, just a perfect wrist shot to tie it up. But then Matt Duchene would end it in overtime, taking a rebound and firing home this goal right here.
By Roman Josi, and look at Matt Duchene coming in from the blue line, top of the circles, and just rips it right over the glove hand of Darcy Kemper for the game winner in overtime. Right there, look at that. And look at the bench.
Yeah, I had to make sure and get the bench reaction in there. That was great. Matt Duchene, just Johnny on the spot, getting a rebound goal and firing it by Kemper. 5-4 was the overtime win for the Predators. Huge atmosphere. We'll talk about that later. Really, really fun game to watch. I mean, you and I were both there. That was probably the best game of the year so far, right?
I would say so. I obviously I'm there to cover the team, but I wouldn't have gotten into doing what I'm doing if I wasn't a fan. So, even though we had to be silent, it was certainly an enjoyable game.
Yeah. A lot of fun. So, however, 2 days later against the Buffalo Sabres, what happened then, Shaun?
So, I don't know. A Thursday night game against the Buffalo Sabres, I would say it was a real snooze fest if I was going to describe it aptly. I know some people were getting really sleepy just watching it. And I think I'm being generous here to say that it was the snooze fest because it was rough. You take all the energy from the game Tuesday night and it's just gone. Coming out against a team that only had 10 wins coming into the night. And there was just, the only thing I think that kept people awake was probably the overwhelming rage they felt at some of the missteps and uninspired play. And so, the night starts with Matt Benning scoring a goal, which I would normally be very excited about because I'm a big Matt Benning fan. But unfortunately, it was an own goal, and it didn't count for the Predators, but counted for the Sabres, giving them a 1-0 lead early on an unearned goal. And that makes me sad. Things kind of went downhill from there. And I know it's bad to say things went downhill from a game opening own goal, but Colton Sisson scored, but the play was like, I don't know, a mile and a half offside. So it came back. Matt Duchene eventually scored a goal on the power play. And that was about the end of anything like being like positive on the night. Jeff Skinner basically activated after spending a bunch of time in the penalty box on a few random penalties. Broke the tie. And then in the third, Skinner scored again. And eventually the Sabres got their fourth goal on an empty net, giving them a 4-1 victory, which was not good. And then, of course, what's interesting, we're going to turn around and talk about the Boston game, right?
Yeah.
To me,
yeah. So I was just going to say this about the Thursday game. I think what's crazy for most people is the contrast between Tuesday and Thursday, and the difference in play on the ice by both teams. I mean, like Buffalo, Jeff Skinner's was good, but Buffalo's not really an impressive squad, and they came in and beat the Predators, in a lot of different ways. I don't think you take away too much from that game, but it is disappointing when you see the Predators, who had won so many games straight and had climbed their way to the top of the Central and were taking on a inferior opponent, to play like that. So
it was.
Did you want to go into Saturday's game?
Yeah, I would say it was an uninspiring game, and then you have that kind of concern coming into Saturday. So Saturday matinee hockey in Boston ended up being much more exciting. Yeah. And the first period started off with a very exciting Craig Smith goal. And of course, again, like I said before, normally I'd be excited about a Craig Smith goal, but unfortunately he doesn't play for the Predators anymore.
Yeah.
So that put Boston up 1-0. And it got followed up pretty quickly with a nice goal by Mike Riley, who also plays for Boston. And that was 2-0, and that was quick. And at first, I thought coming off of this previous game against Buffalo, I went, oh boy, this is going to be a long afternoon. And then we saw a very, very fired up, uncharacteristically, I would say, fired up John Hines on the bench talking to his team. Very animated. And so, team response is basically what happens. From that moment on, the Predators played like they had a fire lit under their rear ends. And Colton Sissons, I guess, making up for the disallowed goal the other night, scores a nice goal close to the end of the first period, just to kind of say, hey, we're not dead yet. Period ends 2-1. Teams come out in the second ready for battle. Luke Cunnin, who's heated up recently, and I'm not going to complain about that, scored to even things up. And then there was a fun sequence, and this was kind of the story of the night or the afternoon for me, was that Brad Marchand and Roman Josi were always around each other, constantly into one another. I mean, and I don't want to say they were getting chippy. It was just Marchand was being Marchand and Josi was being a really good defenseman. But eventually they ended up in the corner together. Josi had turned around to try to dig the puck out. And when he brought his stick back, his elbow found Marchand's nose, which bled a lot. It looked like it hurt pretty bad. But what was interesting, there was no call at all. There was a referee literally watching it happen with a direct line of sight. Didn't even flinch. So I guess whatever it was, I guess it was incidental, and it wasn't meriting a call. So, but of course, what ends up happening after that is Brad Marchand scores a power play goal to take the lead, and of course, battling back is Roman Josi, who scores to even things up, and the teams go into overtime. And guess what happens in overtime? One of the things that we'll probably talk about later, and I don't know, this was kind of a problem all night, was cross-ice passes from the Predators kept getting intercepted. And that's what happened as the Predators were going in to try to score a goal and get set up. You had an errant pass get intercepted, taken down the ice, and Taylor Hall scores the overtime game winner for the Bruins with a final score of 3-2.
Yeah, and that Taylor Hall goal was it was a really nice play by Taylor Hall. What I saw, and so I did not watch this game. I was doing something else family related, but when I watched the recap, it reminded me of the Tuesday game against Colorado, in that both teams had a lot of skill and were using that skill in a lot of ways, and it was a fun game, back and forth, great plays. I mean, like I saw some stuff that looked not great for the Predators, but at the same time, I saw some pretty amazing plays as well. So you feel like maybe they put the Thursday game behind them. Maybe that, and I didn't see this John Hines being animated on the bench. Maybe that was really what did it. And that's great to see, because that probably means he has a really good, connection with that locker room and that bench. So, but I saw some pretty amazing individual plays. I thought the Brad Marchand goal looked pretty good. The Josi goal. I mean, like there was a lot of great individual skill. Not like a Matt Benning own goal and then some muck play for 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I think if you're watching that game as a fan, and I mean, if you're watching that game as a Predators fan, if you're watching that game as a Bruins fan, or if you're watching that game as a fan of hockey, you saw a hell of a game. Granted, if you're a Preds fan, your team didn't win, but you have to feel good about the game, especially that was the game right after what happened on Thursday against Buffalo.
Yeah. And so they end the game. They end the week. The Predators in the week getting 3 of 6 points. I think the previous week they had gotten all 6. Right? They went 6 for 6, or is that?
Yeah,
right?
On the trip, road trip.
Yeah, on the road trip, right? And then we'd expected them to get something like 4 of 6 this week. They got 3 of 6. I think it'll be interesting to see how they come out on Monday against St. Louis. We'll talk about that later too. But I do feel better about where the team is right now based on Saturday, even though they lost, just because of how they played. I mean, it really did look different just from the highlights that I saw than it did on Thursday, and from what you've said about it as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the John Hines thing that you wanted to mention.
Okay. Yeah, I do. I want to talk about this because you and I have both been covering the team, in depth on a nearly daily basis since before John Hines took over, but for the entire tenure of John Hines with this team. And I think we can kind of speak on this just from being aware of anything he says publicly. We've probably heard. We've heard it in context. We know, and we've seen him say it either in person or on a live Zoom. So we're getting everything that goes along with the words. We're getting the emotion. You're getting the body language, the gestures, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think we talked last week about how one of the things that Hines had kind of erased from what he was saying a lot was talking about you don't get too high and you don't get too low. You take the lessons and move on. And you hadn't heard him say that a lot. And I think, honestly, what you saw happen after the incredible string of play the Predators put together from before the break happened to after the break happened, where they went, you take away that tie and the loss in the middle of that 7-game win streak, and then you tack on a bunch of wins after that, there wasn't a lot of losing. And so after the loss to Buffalo, Hines was very straight up. They were the better team. They outplayed us. They deserved the win. We were not a good team tonight. Very blunt, very straightforward about it, which I think was fine. I don't know that I would want my coach to lie to me about how that game went, because I don't think anyone watching was like, oh, they're trying really hard, they should be winning this game, because that wasn't happening. But what he said was the game was a challenge. Like he said, coming in, we knew we had a challenge and that there was a lesson. And I think it's interesting that you're starting to hear this talk of lessons, because what it sounds like to me, based on the verbiage he'd been previously using, it sounds like the team had gotten a little too high on itself. You always want to say, I want to see a team that plays hard. They want to be a team that's hard to play against, play a full 60, whatever you want to say. You want to see that team take a team like the Buffalo Sabres or the Arizona Coyotes or the Montreal Canadiens and just, drag them around the ice and just beat them savagely. And that's what you would expect from a team at the top of a division. You'd expect that from a team that, if you're going to win the Stanley Cup, that's what you want to see out of your team. But we've seen some of those missteps this season. You put together a long string of wins with just a few, with a loss and with a tie, which were all good games. But you put that all together, the team gets a little high on itself, and then you come up against Buffalo, 10 wins, roster that you're not really, don't know who a lot of these guys are. They're not household names. What a lot of people wanted to call a trap game. And it really was, but the trap wasn't so much. And I think Buffalo played well, don't get me wrong, but I think the Predators just didn't take them seriously at all. And just they weren't where they needed to be mentally. And I think that's something Hines has talked about a lot. The challenge was, can we come up against a team that isn't very good and play them and dominate them? And the answer was no. You go back to what he said about don't get too high and don't get too low. The team had gotten too high. Then they lose to the Sabres because of it. Can they then face that challenge of not getting too low to come back and play Boston the way they needed to play against Boston? And the answer there, I believe, is yes. Hines said after the game against Boston, there's no such thing as a good loss.
Yeah.
But I'm not upset at how the team played today. And that's the reality of that situation is, they lost. They didn't win 2 points. They did come away with 1. But they played the game they needed to play as opposed to how they played on Thursday. And maybe that's me overanalyzing things. But, we're over 2 years of covering John Hines now. I feel like we can kind of have an idea of the things he's saying and doing and how those play out behind the scenes as well. So,
I don't think you're overanalyzing anything. I think it's easy to get myopic and look at just a few game stretch and think a lot about what those few games mean. I think it would be one thing if the team played similar on Saturday to Thursday, and maybe they did in the first period because that's what required him to make that statement. But I also the other things to consider here, and one thing we haven't mentioned yet that's probably important too. Does the loss of Philip Forsberg have any kind of a factor here? I feel like the presence of Philip Forsberg in the lineup for Thursday's game against Buffalo could have made a difference. Forsberg has a history of having those angry goals where he comes out and he's just like, I'm gonna stop this and I'm gonna go do something crazy.
I'm going to end someone's career right now.
Yeah, maybe he has a play like that where he goes out and does something crazy and scores a crazy goal. Maybe not, but they've been without Forsberg for a few games now, and then on Saturday they Matthias Ekholm is in COVID protocol, right? So he's out for at least the next few games. So they did have an Ekholm in that game against Boston. Maybe they get maybe with him in the lineup, they have a little bit more punch, a little bit more sandpaper, and he's able to stop some of those plays from happening. Not excuses or anything, but they still don't have their full lineup. I mean, they're still kind of waiting on that. I think it's interesting if you look at the losses that this team has had since Thanksgiving. I'm not going to remember all of them, but I remember the Columbus game, the Washington game, Buffalo. I'll remember that overtime loss they just had against Boston. That's 4, if I'm remembering. There may be another one in there somewhere. But all those games have had things in common. The first 2, Washington and Columbus, they didn't have Roman Josi. And the last 2, Buffalo and Boston, they didn't have Forsberg. 2 of your best players. Just something to consider. It's not like it's everything, but those players make a huge impact in the lineup, especially Roman Josi. I mean, you saw him against Boston just play really well. So I don't know. Do you think Forsberg could have made a difference in any one of those games?
Yeah, I mean, I think and what you said about the Buffalo game is that situation kind of has that Philip Forsberg angry revenge goal written all over it, and I think with the caliber of players, it sounds terrible because I don't do anything sports wise professionally for sure, but with the level of the caliber of player that was going to be on the ice at any given moment. With the Buffalo game, Forsberg would have had an opportunity to absolutely undress some guys and just make some nasty stuff happen out there. And, that, again, you get the own goal, which is, that it happens occasionally. But then you start to see Skinner rack up these goals, and like that would have activated and infuriated Forsberg right there.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if it would have gotten to that point. I think he probably could have made something happen, maybe after the disallowed goal, that would have maybe set the tone a little bit. But with the Boston game too, I mean, that's a totally different team, totally different situation.
And Boston's very good. Let's give them credit. I mean, they're a very good team. They're a playoff team for sure.
Yeah, I think Forsberg, he's going to have an impact anytime he's on the ice. Would he have been the deciding factor in that game? I don't know, but you had guys contributing at the depth level. You had Cunnin scoring. Nick Cousins was heavily involved in a lot of the plays, and that's kind of the thing is you want to see guys like that step up when somebody like Forsberg's not around. So if Forsberg's around, some of those guys are in the same roles. Maybe that depth scoring doesn't happen as much, and you're having Forsberg score those goals. So it may have evened out a little bit more for me in the game versus Boston. So it was a good game.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to talk about something else that I want to cover basically. Well, definitely this one more thing, and then I want to tease something. So. We had mentioned this on Twitter recently, and I want to reiterate what we're going to try to do, and then we'll talk about it again at the end. So I had the idea to do a Twitter Spaces during a game, and it would be a road game, and for it to be kind of a live podcast, basically, like kind of what we're doing now, but during a game, just to see how it goes. Or, I mean, I've never done a Twitter Spaces before. I've listened to a few of them, but it really does just sound like people talking. That's all it is. Nothing too special, but I think it could be fun. And so I put a thing out on Twitter, like, would people be interested in this and want to listen to it? Got a lot of positive responses, was pretty surprised. And it sounds like there's potentially some people that would be interested in this. So what we're going to do is on Monday's game, during Monday's game against St. Louis, road game in St. Louis, sometime during probably the second period, maybe the first period, depending on my schedule. I've got to do family stuff. But I think during the second period, we're going to run a Twitter Spaces with me, you, and whoever else wants to join. So you jump in, we might give you the microphone to say what you want to say about what the game is, what's happening in the game. So just wanted to throw that out there. And then also, Shaun, I believe you had something too, right?
Yeah, Alex, and for everybody else out there listening in podcast land. So, you may or may not be aware, but I am one of the Renegades of Puck. It's the logo you see here on my mug.
Yeah.
Renegades of Puck is, of course, a show we do over on YouTube. Me and Crazy Charlie, Brian Baston, who's also on the forecheck with me, and Greg Mashopoulos, who does all of the goalie analysis, along with a cast of other characters. Video hockey show that talks about the Preds. We're having a pretty big deal the night before the Stadium Series game over at Tailgate Brewery in Nashville. And it's going to be a pretty big party. And I'll say this, there's going to be a lot of special guests. Tailgate has essentially told us to fill the place up and drink them dry, which sounds like a challenge to me. I don't know if any of the listeners out there or the viewers out there are up for that, but I know there's some people who like to put a few away that like this team. And I think the Renegades are even going to have their own special variety of beer for the night. But of course, that's at Tailgate Brewery. It's the home base freakout. Alex, you specifically are invited. Anybody else out there listening, February 25th, 7 o'clock at the Tailgate Brewery in Nashville. It's going to be a pretty crazy party. I know they did this before the Winter Classic down in Dallas, so this is going to be a big deal to do it here at home. So we need to have a good showing. So we need everybody that's out there listening to show up and have a good time.
That is a pretty crazy week. First of all, I accept your invitation. I'm going to do everything I can to be there. February 25th, you said Friday?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty awesome week because that previous night is the Pecorine jersey retirement or number retirement rather. And then Saturday is the Stadium Series game. Wow, that's a big 3 days.
It should be exciting. I mean, I don't know when I quite realized that was all kind of timed together to have the jersey retirement going into the weekend of the Stadium Series game. Clearly, they would have wanted Pecorine there for that too, so it makes sense when I think about it in that context. But adding that party there on Friday night, there's going to be a ton of people here for this game. I mean, we've got people coming in from a bunch of different states. You've got Bolts fans coming up from Florida and down from wherever else they live in the north, but they're all over the place too. And of course, Nashville it's a good place to have a big event. And so people are already going to be in town. We want to give them something to do. And of course, Bolts fans can come too. It's not a Preds only situation. So we just want to get as many people out there to have as big of a time as we can. And I think when we all come together, I think good things can happen. I think, whether you listen to On the Preds or you like to read A to Z sports stuff, or you watch the Renegades of Puck, or you watch you read On the Forecheck stuff, we're all interested in the same thing. So let's all get together before this pretty awesome event that's going to happen and have a good time.
Yeah, and I just real quick, I just wanted to say that the all the guys, Crazy Charlie, everyone that does that show and that has done it for years, they have been covering the Nashville Predators long before most people, and that is of credit to them. They covered the Preds when no one else was, and that's very important to point out, and huge credit to them. Really support them and really like the stuff that they do. obviously the market is a little bit more crowded now. There's a lot more people talking about the Predators these days, but none have been doing it longer than them. So full credit to that.
Just came out with episode 600 yesterday.
600, and that's one a week, or how many is it a week?
It's over the years. It's been a lot of different things. But I know that when we were finishing up last season, we had gotten to where we were on every day. It was being broadcast at 5 and 5. So I think that was the first. I believe it was the first hockey exclusive drive time radio show in Nashville. So.
That sounds right. Yeah, I would believe that for sure. I mean, they've been,
but it's been, I think 11 years is how long the show's been going on.
There you go, 11 years. I thought it was earlier than that, but okay, 11 years makes sense. Okay, so let's move on and talk about a couple other things. Really just one main other thing, and it has to do with one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about with Juuse Saros. So right now, Juuse Saros leads the league in games started. He started 32 games. The team really shows no sign of changing that. He doesn't sound like John Hines really wants to do anything other than start Juuse Saros. David Riddick has been okay in that, not great. Connor Ingram's in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
I think he started something like 11 of the last 12 games, something like that. And I mean, the team has 4 games this week, including a back-to-back. I would not be surprised if he starts 3 of the 4. He's not going to start all 4, but I think he starts 3 of the 4. So, in other words, it's not stopping anytime soon. You're going to get a lot of Juuse Saros. Now, I know that he's young. He's 26. He'll be 27 by the end of this year. I'm not worried about him breaking down this year. He's young enough to handle it, but I'm a little bit concerned about what happens in the years to come. He'll be almost 30 by the time this contract is up. He's going to need that next contract when he's 30 years old. You saw this with Pecorine, that by the time he got to his early 30s, he started to see breakdowns when you started him 50, 60 times a year, and you needed to let him, especially when he had the hip problem. When he came back from that. Now he was still a quality goalie all the time, but you did see him break down in the playoffs a few times. When 2016 comes to mind, 2015 definitely. When he had started too many games and was worn out by the time the playoffs began. So, is this stupid to worry about or no?
I think you've got a situation that is. It's not ideal. That's the way I would word it. It's not an ideal situation. Is it a terrible situation? No, but it's not ideal. I still go back to say that I feel like the plan originally was that when Rene retired, you would have Saros in the starter's crease and Ingram as a backup. And because of the situation with Ingram needing to take some time for his mental health, which was the best possible thing he could have done, I think that kind of delayed everything by a year with Ingram. They needed him in Milwaukee. They needed him to get back up to game speed, to have a full season under his belt. And so they brought in Riddick as a stopgap measure. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Riddick. I just don't think that Riddick as a backup is as reliable, say, as Saros was as a backup. And I think they're just trying to ride the horse they've got and assume that, like you said, because he's younger, he's not going to break down this season in order to get to next season where Riddick's contract ends. They bring Ingram up. They feel more confident in their backup. And again, I'm not saying, I feel like it's like 2 or 3 weeks in a row I've made it sound like I have some problem with Riddick, but I don't. I just when you're talking about the Predators' goalkeeping, situation, they've been pretty spoiled in having a really strong backup behind a really strong starter. You look at some other team situations and their backups are basically a colander, with a guy in the net who's okay to start. And this luxury, dare I say luxury of Rene and Saros as a combination was really, Preds fans are spoiled.
They really are.
And
They
so
really are.
you're looking at Riddick as a backup who's a completely serviceable backup. And in a lot of teams would, probably be a fine 50-50 starter. But you've got him as a backup in this situation behind someone who's playing Vezina caliber hockey. And so that gap between the two is much bigger than it normally would be. And so, is it a concern? Is it something to be concerned about? It is if this is your long-term plan, is to ride Saros for 65 games a season or more. But I don't think that's the plan. I think you're looking at a year that they've had to adjust because their plans, didn't line up exactly the way they needed to. It's thrown things off by a year. So I think Saros is playing. He's a hot goalie right now. He's on fire. He's going to keep playing as much as possible. And hopefully, for 1 year, that's an okay thing.
Sorry, I'm distracted by several things that are happening. I really was listening to. I think, especially what you said about the Preds fans being spoiled. It's pretty amazing. I think that every single other team in the league has something legitimate to complain about their goalie situation over the last decade. And the Predators really don't. I mean, with the possible exception of there was a number of years where Carey Price was the god in Montreal. He was so good, but the team really wasn't very good. And I think they didn't even make the playoffs. And then now with Tampa and Vasilevsky, it's those guys are really good. But I mean, but prior to Vasilevsky, Tampa didn't have anything like that. They had Ben Bishop, who was breaking down all the time. I think most teams really don't. Okay, so maybe Pittsburgh, but then they didn't win because of their goaltending. Everyone thinks that they did, but Marc-Andre Fleury was not the reason they were winning. They were winning because they had a Hall of Fame. They had 2 Hall of Fame players winning every game for them.
Yeah.
And Marc-Andre Fleury was good, but he was not. His numbers, go check. They're not as impressive as you might think. Anyways, not hating on Marc-Andre Fleury. He's going to win. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame because he's won 1,000 Stanley Cups. But
now, hey, hold on. When you say 2 Hall of Fame caliber players winning every game, you're talking about Phil Kessel, right?
Phil Kessel and I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Yeah, obviously I'm talking about Crosby and Malkin, but probably Phil Kessel deserves some credit there.
Hey, he didn't hurt anything, I'll tell you that much.
So anyways, all right. So I'm not totally worried about it, especially because, the Predators have a young goalie and Askarov coming up, who I think all signs point to him being an excellent goaltender and in the NHL, and perhaps in 5 years or 4 years, I guess is when, 4 years. I guess it's 3 years after this year when Saros' contract is up. Maybe Askarov is the guy, and then Saros walks. But I wouldn't be surprised if Saros is the guy that they have for the next decade, and Askarov becomes a trade piece. I mean, I don't know. Who knows how it's all going to work out? But either way, they're in a great position. And Saros is the guy that and this leads to why I was worried about it, is if you have 3 or 4 seasons where he starts 60 games every year, by the time he's 30 years old, he's got more wear than any goalie in the league. I mean, he's going to be a well-worn goaltender by that point. So then where are you at that point? So that's all I'm saying.
I don't know. Really, here's the thing. Let's be really realistic about it, right? And I know. Are you a car guy, Alex? You big into cars?
I actually know nothing about cars. It's okay. I am so not a car guy at all.
Okay, I know a little bit about cars on the strength of my father being a drag racer and a mechanic. So here's what I'm going to say. Look, I drive a truck right now. You know what I mean? It gets me to work every day.
I do know what a truck is.
There's 1 point for Alex. All right. So look, I drive a truck. It's let's see, what year is it? It's 2007. I mean, it's a 15-year-old truck. It's dependable. It's reliable. It gets me where I need to go. I can haul stuff in it. I can toast up with it. We drove it all the way up to Montana, pulling a camper this summer. Like it was good stuff. It's a great truck. But let's say that tomorrow an opportunity falls in my lap where I have a chance to get like just a really nice, just maybe a Camaro, some kind of muscle car, right? And it looks nice. It's new. It's clean. Am I just going to drive it back and forth to work every day on the interstate, going the speed limit? Or do I want to take it out and let those ponies gallop, Alex? Got all that horsepower under the hood. Why not just go pick up some groceries in it, right? No, you want to get out there and you want to turn some hot laps. Let Saros have a year of hot laps, and then he can get into your daily driver situation.
Okay. So Saros is the muscle car.
Hey.
Who is the truck?
What do you mean?
I think you were saying, okay, all right. So never mind. I get it now. Saros is the muscle car. You want to have him drive around and use him for his intended purposes.
Let's go fast.
Okay, got it.
I like to go fast.
The analogy makes sense. I'm just saying the car thing is like I was trying to think in my mind, who is the truck situation? But I think you were just saying that you own a truck, so never mind.
Yeah. No. That's the thing is if I have a muscle car, I'm not just going to drive it back and forth to work every day. I'm gonna take it out. I'm gonna wait till I know there's a good empty stretch of highway where there's no police presence, and I'm gonna put the pedal to the floor and see how fast it can go. You've got a goalie that's clearly in prime physical condition, prime goalie condition. I mean, he's at the top of his game right now. His name's up there amongst the top goaltenders in the league. Let him, let the ponies gallop under that hood. Let's see what he can do when he's put to the test, and let's see how he performs. If he performs well, he wins the Vezina. Hey, you've got a proven trophy winner right there, and he's going to be the guy going, down the road for several years. And you don't have to play him. You don't have to play him 70 games a year if you've got somebody that is going to be a solid backup. But I don't think it's going to hurt to play him a lot of games this season when he's in. He's the right age to play a lot. You know what I mean?
I just thought about what if he did win the Vezina this year, and I was like, I wonder when the last time a goalie won the Vezina before he was 27 years old. Vasilevsky. I don't know why I was thinking otherwise. Vasilevsky.
Yeah,
he was like 24.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. So, and that guy's probably just a walking Hall of Famer right now. I mean, he's already won 2 cups and a Vezina, and he's like 27 years old. That's pretty insane.
High performance vehicle.
There you go. So, anyways, just wanted to mention that as well. Let's briefly talk about the week ahead. Monday, the Predators take on the St. Louis Blues, 7 p.m. start. Again, we are doing a special Twitter Spaces thing on the Preds on the Twitter. That's what I'm calling it.
Ooh, I like that.
Name may change. Who knows? On the Preds on the Twitter. Twitter Spaces pop up during the game with me and Shaun. Just log on to Twitter. Find me. You see our Twitter handles right there. Find me and Shaun. Join the space. Listen to us. Live react to the game. We may even grant you speaker opportunities to say what you want to say. I'm imagining that we'll start in the second period. And then if this is something that people like and want to keep doing, we'll do it again. We'll find another spot to do it. But after that, there's 3 home games. Probably won't do it during those. They have a back-to-back. So Tuesday, they come back home to play Vancouver. Thursday versus Winnipeg. And then Saturday versus Detroit. Big Saturday Detroit game. It's been so long since we've had one of those. Very excited. That used to be the big, for people that don't know, that used to be the big ticket game, right? So like that was back in like early 2000s, 2002, 2003, 2004. That was Saturday night versus Detroit, old Central Division rivals. That was like the game to get to. That was awesome.
There's still tons and tons and tons of Detroit fans here.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a lot of people that come to that game that would normally wear a Preds jersey that'll probably be wearing a Detroit jersey.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get really upset about that kind of stuff. But I mean, goodness gracious, if you've not grown up as a fan of one team only for your entire life, which I mean that's a lot of people. Allegiances change, you move, things happen. You get a chance to see the team that you grew up watching. in your home arena, that's pretty exciting. I guess, I don't know, maybe some people get still worked up about it, but I think I think it's really cool.
Yeah. That is, it's going to be fun. I think I'll definitely try to make that one. But yeah, that pretty much covers us this week. Predators still up there in the Central Division. I think they're now in second place with Colorado, but and Colorado has games in hand, so they're probably the favorite to win the Central. To win the Central right now, I don't think anything's going to change there. But the Predators are still right there and can compete with anybody. We've seen that, and including beating the Colorado Avalanche last week. So. Huge games this week. The St. Louis road game, that's going to be the one that I think is going to be the test of the week. Going into St. Louis and playing the Blues after having lost a couple games, you need to see a good response. Vancouver's not very good, but still got some talent. Winnipeg, always a tough game. And then Detroit, we saw this team lose to Detroit a couple times last year. So it's always a tough team to play. So, yeah, I think that wraps it up. You can check out all of our hockey coverage at AtoZSportsNashville.com. Please also go to ontheforecheck.com as well. Follow me on Twitter at AlexDoherty1. That's where you'll see the Twitter Spaces. Shaun as well, SCSOTF. And we will see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.